Hi, welcome back to Beginning Knitting. I'm so happy that you've decided to join us again. Hopefully this is acting as a stress reliever for all the other nonsense that we're going through. It might be causing its own set of stressors, but that's okay. We can all deal with it. So I want you to look at your fabric and where you left off. If you are not at the end of a row where your working yarn matches the tail of the yarn, if they're not on the same side, go ahead and knit down that row. We want to start in this position where both yarns are on the right hand end, because that way you know you're looking at the front of your fabric. Today we're going to learn the stockinette stitch. Now the stockinette stitch is a little bit different than the garter stitch, which is what you've been doing. The garter stitch was we knit every single row. You would knit on this side. When you turned it, you would knit on this side. With stockinette stitch, you still knit the right side. So we want to come down, knit your stitches. Remember, we're going from the left side, behind the needle to the right, wrapping and pulling through. I'm sure you've all practiced this and you're all just so anxious to get on to a new skill. And once you learned this, you've learned basically 90% of knitting. You might say that's not possible, but it is. Everything is made up of the knit stitch and the purl stitch in the world of knitting. It's just how you combine them. And certainly they can get kind of complex, but it's basically the same skill. All right, so I've knit down. I'm going to turn. Stitches are on the left-hand needle. My working needle is in my right side, or on my right hand, sorry. And it's going to be a little bit different this time. Instead of going and crossing into the back, we're going to come from the right side, cross in front, and go to the left side. Again, we're going to come from the right side, go through that front loop, not the back loop, just the front loop, and end up with our X looking like this with the working needle on top. Now you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to wrap that yarn through your X. Don't go around to the back needle. Just go through, wrap it around your front needle. You can bring it right down over your thumb. Then we're going to push that needle down, pull it down, push it down, whatever's easier for you. You're going to pass through that loop and you're going to catch, there's a little bar back there. You'll catch it and pull it off and you'll have a purl stitch. Again, we're going to come from the right side in front of our needle, make your X, working needle on top, take your yarn, pass it in between the two needles, around that top needle, down over your thumb, push through and off. Sorry, we're going to go in, around, through, and off. In, making sure that working needle is at the top, around, making sure we're only going around the working needle, right down over our thumb, and off. So when you are wrapping your yarn, if you wrap it really loosely, it's going to be a little bit difficult to catch that yarn underneath. Your stitch is going to slip and slide all over the place. And if you wrap it really tightly, like you're choking somebody, it's going to be very difficult. So keep your tension. And this is what takes practice, but just keep it in a nice, relaxed manner. And we're going to go all the way to the end of our row. This is actually the wrong side of your fabric. It's still okay. It's not like it did anything bad. It's just the back side, so we call it the wrong side. And when we get to the end of the row, we'll make that now familiar motion where we take our needle that has the stitches in the right hand and put it in the left hand, and when you turn it over you'll see a totally different look. This is smooth now. All right, so that's cool. The idea is that when you're looking at this nice smooth side, you're always going to be knitting. When you're looking at the side here with the bumps, you're going to be purling. Right side, wrong side. So we'll go down one more row with knit stitches. And then I'm going to show you how to cast off or bind off. Those two terms are used interchangeably. I learned using the word bind off, but some patterns and books will say cast off. That's an easy thing to do. You're going to like it. You can do it from the right side. You can do it from the wrong side. It's all going to be dependent on what your pattern says. So when we get to pattern reading, you'll have to pay attention to that. So now I am looking at that really cool smooth side. And I'm going to purl down because I think it's going to be easier to show you to cast off with knit stitches than purl stitches, but it's basically the same principle. So excuse me while I go through this. We need that magic kitchen where you put your pie in the oven and then when you turn around you take it out and it's done, and it didn't have any time lapse like a kitchen like that. All right, so here we are. We're going to be looking at the front side of the fabric, which we know now is going to be the side that we knit on, but we want to take these stitches off the needle. You can't just take them off the needle. The whole thing will unravel. You have to kind of end it. So we're back to our knit stitch, and you are going to do 2 knit stitches. That's it, just 2. Now take your needle that's in your left hand and put it through the first needle on the needle where, or put it through the first stitch rather, on the needle where there are only 2 stitches. So you've got this needle through the stitch and you're just going to pass it over. So it looks a little funny, it's a little scary because your stitches have to come kind of close to the end of the needle. You can always hold on to this to make sure it doesn't come off, but you're just passing the stitch over and off. So there's never more than 2 stitches on that needle. Again, I'm going in from the front like I was purling, and I'm pulling the stitch over. Slide close to the end and carefully let them come off. Now, if you're knitting too tightly, this is going to be a very difficult procedure, and you can kind of gauge that maybe you need to relax a little and loosen up. But if you're too loose, again, it just gets wiggly jiggly. But if you're in the neighborhood of being correct, you'll be able to pull that over and off the stitch without losing that second stitch that was on there. Now I'm down to 1. I'll put the second stitch on, take the first stitch, pass it over the second stitch, and keep going. And you'll notice that these stitches are coming off the needle and they're not unraveling. And that's what you want. You don't want to spend all this time doing your project and then just have it unravel. When you get to the end, you'll have 1 stitch. There'll be nothing for the stitch to pass over. So that's our final move for this lesson. We'll take the first stitch, pass it over the second stitch. Then you can pull your needle out a little. So you get a nice big loop there. Break your yarn off. You can make the tail whatever size you want, but make it long enough so that you're comfortable working with it. And you're going to put your fingers inside that loop that was that last stitch. Take the tail of your yarn, pass it through, and pull. And that will bind it off, and you will be good to go. And there's our first little swatch. You have 2 tails on this. We have to weave these in. We talk about that in our next lesson. So hopefully you'll be able to get through this. Remember, you want to practice, practice, practice. This is a skill. Nobody was born knowing how to knit. You have to practice it. You have to get comfortable. You have to see how your hands hold the yarn to get a stitch that you like the tension of. So relax. Use this as just a de-stressor, not a moment of stress in your day. Nobody needs any more of that right now. But please let us know at Untangled Purls if we can help you at all. Give us a call. We'll be happy to return it and talk you through it over the phone. Or if you need any help, you can also email us and we will get back to you. So thanks a lot. Remember, next week we will start our headband. Bye-bye.